This is the land of Israel. The Bible calls this territory the Promised Land. And according to the Bible, God promised that this land would be the eternal inheritance of the children of Israel, the Jewish people today. Yet, after the time of Jesus, the people of Israel were uprooted from their land and dispersed around the globe. And without a land, they became like dry, scattered bones, vulnerable to deadly antisemitism, with only a fading hope that they would ever be a powerful nation again.
After the destruction of the Second Temple, Jews literally were dispersed around the world. And country after country, after the Jews had established themselves, after they had become settled, after they felt they had found a new home, they ended up having to leave. Anti-Semitism, oppression, sometimes forced expulsion, and we're talking about many, many countries of Europe. We're not talking, Spain is a famous one, the Great Expulsion in 1492. But it wasn't only there were times from England. In other countries, they were forced into ghettos and had to live miserable existence in ghettos. And this went on literally till the end of the 19th century.
All nations need homelands, and precisely in the 19th century, when nationalism becomes a huge factor in Europe, and even countries like Italy and Germany finally get their act together enough to become states, the Jewish people are also feeling that this being hounded and the wandering Jew persecuted wherever we go. It's one of the scary phenomena of anti-Semitism, that it's the most universal hatred on the planet Earth. The notion emerges more from Jews who had left their Judaism behind, but were nonetheless culturally and historically connected to Israel, mostly Eastern European Jews, that we need a Jewish national homeland. Everyone else in the world has a homeland, and that will be the solution to anti-Semitism. We're now a stateless people at the mercy of other people with no embassy, no flag, no army, no culture. When we have those things, anti-Semitism will cease. That is the founding ideology of Zionism.
A very secular Jew, Theodor Herzl, was a newspaper reporter for an Austrian newspaper, and he was asked to cover the Dreyfus trial. Dreyfus was a French army officer who had been falsely accused of working for the enemy. And it was so clear that the charges were trumped up against Dreyfus because he was a Jew. And Herzl was witnessing this as a secular, completely unaffiliated Jew, thought he was accepted in Austria and Europe as an equal. And he realized that even France, again, modern country, a liberated country, could turn on a Jew because he was a Jew. And that shocked him so much that he changed his whole worldview and realized that the Jewish future would not be in Europe. The Jews had to be like every other country, and they had to have their own state.
Herzl, after the Dreyfus affair, he realized that we are heading for another anti-Semitic explosion, and we need to do something about it. So he wanted to go for Uganda. He didn't know about the Bible. He didn't know about what God said, what God promised. He just wanted to get the people out. So Uganda was a very, very nice option. But ultimately, God said it will be Israel.
Historically, traditionally, Israel has always been the homeland of the Jewish people. And a lot of Jews are confused about this point, but being Jewish is not just a religious thing. There are Jews living in Canada and America and France and England and in Russia, but that's a diaspora. The Jews are a nation. The Jewish people have a land, a language, and a history. And the Jewish people were in the land of Israel for over a millennia before they were actually exiled for 2,000 years. So part of that is a recognition, first of all, that as a unique sort of spiritual nation, the only place we can actualize our potential and our unique mission as a nation that's a light to nations is when we're plugged into our land. So traditionally, way before the founding of Zionism, which is a very new phenomenon in Jewish history, I mean, new in Israel, 100 years is nothing for Jewish history. It's always been in Jewish prayers and in Jewish longing to go back to the land of Israel, back to Jerusalem, rebuild the temple. That is the way Jews are supposed to be. And that is something that is deeply ingrained in Jewish consciousness. It's mentioned in all the holidays. After the Passover Seder, for thousands of years, Jews in diaspora would say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habanuya, next year in Jerusalem, rebuilt. which means Jews back in Israel, not just the city rebuilt, but the temple rebuilt. So that's one level of understanding. That's the deepest, the oldest, most profound level. And even at a Jewish wedding, by the way, if anyone's ever been to a proper Jewish wedding, at one moment, the groom breaks a glass with his foot. Now everyone yells Mazel Tov, which is congratulations, but ironically that glass is being broken because what you say after you break that glass is Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yemini tidbach leshoni elichi im lo al Yerushalayim al rosh simchati. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my tongue cling to the roof of its mouth, may my right hand forget its cunning if I don't raise Jerusalem above all my joys. So it's like a profound understanding of the centrality of Israel and Jerusalem and the power and the spirituality that is centered in the land of Israel that is essential for the Jewish people for their mission.
While separated from the Promised Land for 2,000 years, the dim hope of returning to Zion remained in Jewish hearts through their traditions, prayers, and scriptures. And according to their prophets, God would one day bring Israel's scattered bones up out of their graves and back to their rightful land.